Number 5. Museum workers in Krasnoyarsk were astonished when they digitalized local photos from the early 1900s, only to find an identical figure in all of them. A solemn girl, dressed in all white, striking an identical pose. So far, the mystery girl has been found in at least 20 photos and 4 glass negatives, which researchers at the Krasnoyarsk Regional Museum of Local Lore believe were taken between 1906 and 1908, judging from the state of the buildings in the photos. In most of the landscape shots, the girl plays no obvious role, standing in the background next to several lower-class children, or at one point on a rooftop in front of a railway bridge in the Siberian city. After releasing a series of postcards pointing out the girl, the museum hopes locals may help identify her, if that is even possible, considering the social upheavals that had occurred in Russia since. So far, no one has come forward. Number 4. On December 26, 1900, a supply ship arrived at the Eilean Mor Lighthouse to find that no one was at the dock waiting for them. The island's only inhabitants were the lighthouse keepers, James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and William MacArthur. Captain James Harvey was in charge of the supply ship and had brought along Joseph Moore, a replacement lighthouse keeper. After attempts at getting the lighthouse keepers using the ship's horn and a flare, Joseph decided to go up to the lighthouse to check things out. When he reached the lighthouse, he immediately knew something was wrong because the door was unlocked and 2 of the 3 coats were missing in the entrance hall. As he reached the kitchen, he noticed a half-eaten meal and an overturned chair as if someone had left in a hurry. After searching the lighthouse top to bottom, Joseph hadn't found signs of the lighthouse keepers. A further investigation was made and found mysterious entries in the lighthouse log. December 12th, Thomas Marshall noted of severe winds. He also noted that James Ducat, the principal keeper, had been very quiet and that William MacArthur had been crying. The strange thing is that on the mainland, MacArthur had been known as a tough guy and a seasoned mariner. December 13th noted that the storm was still raging on and that the 3 men had been praying. It's strange because all 3 men were seasoned mariners and situated about 150 feet above sea level. They should have known they'd be safe. So why would they be praying for the storm to pass over? The final log entry on December 15th read, "Storm ended, sea calm, God is over all." Stranger is that there are no reported storms in the area on the 12th, 13th, and 14th of December. In fact, the weather in that area had been reported as calm. The most accepted theory is that the men were swept into the sea and drowned. However, questions arose about why the bodies had never washed up on shore, as well as some others. Number 3. On September 16, 1922, 2 teenage lovers were out on a stroll when they discovered the bodies of a man and a woman lying under a crab apple tree. Both the man and the woman were dead. The man was shot once, the woman 3 times. The bodies had been posed. Both the man's and the woman's feet were pointed towards the apple tree. The man's hand was on the woman's neck and hers on his knee. The man's card was propped against his foot. A hat concealed the man's head, and a scarf was wrapped around the woman's neck. It was later discovered that the woman's tongue had been cut out. Torn love letters were scattered all around them. The bodies were those of Reverend Edward Wheeler Hall and Eleanor Reinhardt Mills. The 2 had been lovers, but their affair was a complicated one. Mills was married to a church's janitor, and Hall was married to a wealthy woman named Frances Stevens Hall, the main murder suspect. The crime scene was contaminated by souvenir hunters, and thus the police had nothing solid to go on until Jane Gibson, better known as the Pig Woman, came forward. She was a hog farmer who lived near the crime scene. Gibson said that she heard a noise on the night of September 14 and saw someone in her cornfield. Figuring it was a thief, she saddled her mule and rode in pursuit, but instead came upon a parked car. There she heard a bitter argument between 2 men and 2 women. A woman's voice yelled, "Explain these letters." Then there were gunshots, shrieks, and a woman screaming. Frightened, Gibson galloped home. Authorities declared jealousy the motive, and suspicion soon fell upon Edward Hall's wife and her 2 brothers. The murder trial lasted 30 days. While Mrs. Hall and her brothers had both motive and means, they were ultimately acquitted of the murders, due largely to a lack of adequate evidence. While most historians now believe that Mrs. Hall and her 2 brothers were the guilty parties, the case has officially never been solved. Number 2. In the early 1990s, a homemade VHS circulated around called Grave Robbing for Morons. It features a young man explaining how to rob graves without getting caught, what bones are most valuable, and other grave robbing tips. In the video, it shows what appears to be an actual human skull that he's stolen, and at the end he gives the nicknames of himself and his grave robbing crew, Anthony, Gino, Taco, and Poochie, and vows to continue robbing graves for the fun of it. To this day, no one knows who made the video or who the narrator is. There is a site dedicated to finding out the origin of the video and the identity of the narrator, but they don't have any additional information to add. Because of the over-the-top nature of some of the advice, some believe that the video is an act intended to cash in on the pseudo-reality television craze that was going on thanks to things like Faces of Death. But others seem to think that at the very least, the narrator has robbed graves, and that this could be a legit video. Number 1. On August 7, 1972, 16-year-old high school student Jeannette DePalma told her mom she was going out to visit a friend. When she didn't return that evening, her worried mother called the police, who discovered she had never made it to her friend's house. 6 weeks later, a dog walking in the woods near Jeanette's home in Springfield, New Jersey, ran back to its owner with a badly decomposed arm. The grisly find led to police discovering the teenager's body nearby and sparked a mystery embroiled in rumors of witchcraft and satanic rituals, which remains unsolved to this day. Jeanette's body was found on a ridge known as the Devil's Teeth, and local witnesses said it was surrounded by a series of strange occult objects, with the remains of dead animals hanging from nearby trees. Although wildly different accounts exist of the murder scene, the most consistent detail was that the body was inside a coffin-shaped structure made from fallen branches and logs, with several makeshift crosses around it. According to post-mortem report, the exact cause of death could not be determined, and a likely cause was listed as strangulation. A toxicology report found no trace of drugs, but a high level of lead, which was also unexplained.